Hi, welcome to the monthly market report for the Hamilton residential real estate market for January of 2024. The first month is in the books. The numbers are in, and overall the theme is relatively positive. Not too high, not too low, kind of right in the middle. We'll see as we unveil the numbers. Now, the first number, of course, is the value number. We start with the median sale price ended at $715,000, which was up from the end of December, where it was just over 700, so about a 2% gain over the month to start the year. So a good kickoff to the year. It ended at 720,000 last January, so down, under 1% from this time last year. Still lower than the high point we saw in 2023, which was 770,000, so 7% from then, and obviously still quite a bit down from the peak of 2022, where we've seen a 25% decrease in the value since then. But on the bright side, over the last 4 years, from January of 2020 to this January, the market's seen a 35% appreciation. So over a 4-year period, pretty normal. We're just kind of biased to the recent activity of the last 2-3 years of the crazy ups and downs. So a relatively strong month from a value perspective. Now, the biggest negative number that we saw in January was the amount of time it took to sell a property. So the units that sold were, the median number of days taken was 59, and that is the cumulative days on market, so counting all of the different listing periods it has had to sell. So that's the highest number we've seen since the board has been keeping the cumulative days on market number. But that's the worst number for the month, and we'll see where the trend on that is going as February rolls through. But months of inventory were down to 2.9. That's lower than the last 4 months of 2022, where they were all up over 4. Also, the last 4 months of 2023, and the last 4 months of 2022 were all over 3. So over the last 24 months, this is a pretty middle of the road number, and 2.9 months is pretty normal. Like, it's a pretty normal number for a normal, relatively balanced market. So the number of sales, this is where we've seen, if you were paying attention to the market over the last year was just the slowest year we have seen on record, and record going back 10 or 11 years that we can access, where almost every month was hitting record lows for the amount of activity. That was not the case in January. There were just over 400 units sold, which was a 10% increase over January of the year before, and almost 90% of the normal activity that we see in the month of January in this market. And that number, so it's just 89%, was higher than any month that we saw last year. Every single month last year was slower than 89% of that normal activity for that month. So seeing definitely much more activity, greater demand, and the market kind of meeting, finding more sellers and buyers meeting on acceptable prices. Likewise, new listings were actually the exact same as they were the year before in January, which is about 100, but just kind of very typical amount of properties going on the market that we see in the month of January in the market. And the result of that is that we saw an increase in the sales to new listings ratio, getting up to 60%, which is getting on the verge. It's still a balanced number, but it is starting to teeter into seller's market territory, which as a buyer, you're kind of tired of seeing things in a seller's market. Now, it's not crazy, and like I said, it's still balanced and just kind of teetering, but 60% relative to what we've seen over the last few months is a pretty strong number. And then overall, the amount of inventory that's on the market, it's 15% more at the end of this January than we saw the prior January. And I think that's really due to buildup that we saw at the end of the year, the last few months of 2023, where we saw a significant amount of properties coming on the market and a significantly low number of properties being sold. So that ended up in a buildup, but we were 30% more We have 30% more on the market than normal at the end of January, but the last few months of the year, those numbers were at 40 and 45% higher than normal. So again, we are trending towards a more normal market. So overall, that's kind of where the market ended. As you can see, overall, like I said at the beginning, pretty normal, pretty balanced, no significant shifts in one direction or the other, which en masse is good for the market. We don't want to see things going too high too quickly, too low too quickly. We want to be pretty comfortable with the volatility or the lack thereof in a market, just for the typical consumer, typical home buyer and home seller. So that's a good thing to see, that we're seeing things kind of just balance out, kind of normalize. What to look for ahead? Personally, I think that buyers, we've seen an uptick in buying activity. I think that there's a thirst for buying, and all we're going to need to see a pretty good, kind of wave of more buyers coming into the market is some good news, and that's going to come in the shape of an interest rate drop. Some people were predicting that coming in March. I think that's going to take a little while, and because I think although gas prices have remained relatively stable, with all the instability in the Middle East, there's a decent chance that we're going to see that inflation number still staying up above the target of 2% and even above 3%. So we'll see. I don't think the rates are going to come down as soon as we may have thought, but I think they're going to. But overall, it's a fairly optimistic market, and I think they're just waiting for some good news for more buyers to jump in there. Anyways, if you have any questions, let me know, and I'll be happy to dig up any information you need, give you my opinion. But thank you for watching. I appreciate it, as always, and wish you the best of months, and look forward to talking to you next month. All right, take care.